They always thought their ego was untouchable, fed daily by attention, reactions, admiration, and emotional access to you. They thrived on being seen as important, as necessary, as someone who could still move your world with a single word. What they never prepared for was absence, the slow, merciless starvation of their self-importance. You didn't confront them. You didn't challenge their pride directly. You did something far more lethal to the ego. You removed its food. No reactions, no validation, no conflict, no emotional supply, just silence. And silence is where an ego goes to die. They expected resistance. They expected anger. They expected you to fight back so they could continue feeling powerful. But you denied them the stage. And without an audience, their performance meant nothing. Their arrogance collapsed under the weight of being ignored. Each day without your attention weakened them. Each unanswered attempt drained them further. They realized too late that their ego didn't survive on confidence, it survived on control. And you took that away without touching them once. They tried to provoke you because desperation always follows starvation, loud behavior, subtle manipulation, fake apologies, public narratives, anything that might pull one last emotional thread. But you didn't flinch. You didn't bite. You didn't feed the hunger they created. They had built their identity around the idea that you were affected by them, that your mood bent around their actions, that your heart still hovered within reach of their influence. When that illusion vanished, their sense of self shattered with it. It terrified them how calm you became. Calm people are dangerous to egos that crave chaos. Your composure told them something they couldn't accept. You no longer needed their existence to define your own. They tried to convince others that you were cold, cruel, heartless, but those words were just their hunger speaking. They wanted to be important enough in your life to be hated, but you didn't hate them. You erased them. Nothing starves an ego faster than irrelevance. When they could no longer trigger you, they could no longer recognize themselves. Their confidence had always been borrowed from your reactions. Without you, they had nothing to mirror back at themselves. They once believed they could still shake you. That one message, one memory, one reminder of the past would pull you back into their orbit. But your silence taught them a harsher truth. You weren't orbiting them at all. You had your own gravity now. Every day you stayed unmoved became another day their ego shrank. They watched you rise without them, laugh without them, glow without them. And with each moment of your happiness, their sense of importance withered. They realized their power over you was never real, it was permission-based. You allowed them into your emotions once, and when you withdrew that permission, they were left powerless in a space they used to rule. They tried to compete with your peace, tried to outshine your glow, tried to prove they still mattered, but ego cannot compete with self-respect, and you had learned self-respect the hard way. They wanted you to miss them loudly, to regret leaving publicly, to struggle visibly. Instead, you healed privately, and that quiet victory was unbearable to someone who needed visible dominance. They kept searching for traces of their impact on you. A sad post, a subtle hint, a backward glance, but you gave them nothing. You didn't even give them the satisfaction of knowing they still crossed your mind. Their ego began turning against itself, from confidence to insecurity, from pride to obsession, from dominance to doubt. Because when control disappears, the mind starts eating itself alive. They once thought they were the prize. They once believed you were lucky to have access to them. But the moment your life improved without their presence, that fantasy collapsed completely. They wanted you to chase. You didn't move. They wanted you to beg. You went silent. They wanted you to hurt. You healed. And every outcome they feared became reality. They lost sleep replaying moments where they thought they had the upper hand. Now those moments felt hollow, embarrassing, false. What they thought was dominance was just borrowed relevance. Their ego couldn't survive the idea that they were optional to you. Not special, not unforgettable, just another lesson you outgrew. You didn't destroy their reputation. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't attack publicly. You did something far more devastating. You removed their emotional significance from your life completely. They tried to tell themselves that you'd come back when loneliness hit, but loneliness never came. Peace arrived instead, and peace made sure you never looked their way again. They realized too late that ego thrives on reaction, not logic, and you gave them neither, just distance, just growth, just evolution. They wanted to live rent-free in your mind the way you lived in theirs, but your mind evicted them without notice. No lease, no warning, no goodbye. Their identity had been built on the idea that they mattered to you. When that collapsed, they didn't just lose you, they lost themselves. Every new version of you that rose without them was another reminder that they were never the source of your strength, only the resistance that forced you to become stronger. They kept trying to make you remember who they were to you, but you had already decided who they were to your future, and that answer was nothing. They wanted to break you emotionally. Instead, you broke their illusion of importance, and that injury cut far deeper than heartbreak ever could. They thought ego was power. You showed them discipline was power. Detachment was power. Silence was power. Growth was power. You didn't just defeat their ego, you deprived it of every resource it depended on to survive. Attention, access, emotion, validation, control. They once believed your attention was automatic, that your energy was something they could tap into whenever their world felt empty. They built their sense of importance on the idea that they mattered to you more than you mattered to yourself. When you withdrew completely, it wasn't just your presence they lost, it was the mirror that made them feel powerful. They tried to convince themselves you were pretending, that your silence was performative, that behind closed doors you must be suffering, missing them, regretting everything. But your peace remained steady, unbothered, unbroken, and slowly, the truth settled in. They were suffering alone. They never realized how much their ego depended on being needed, not loved, needed. Once you showed them you could exist perfectly fine without needing anything from them, their sense of dominance began to rot from the inside out. They kept expecting a moment of weakness from you, a late-night call, a nostalgic message, a visible crack in your composure. But every day passed, without that moment arriving, and with each passing day, their confidence lost another layer. They used to measure their value by the effect they had on you, the way you reacted, the way you cared, the way you stayed. When your reactions disappeared, they had nothing left to measure themselves against, and emptiness is a terrifying place for an ego to live. They began to realize that you didn't disappear emotionally, you detached strategically. You didn't leave in chaos, you left in clarity. And clarity is what finally made their illusion of control crumble beyond repair. They tried to provoke jealousy, you gave indifference. They tried to provoke anger, you gave stillness. They tried to provoke longing, you gave distance. Every tactic failed because your energy no longer belonged to them. They once believed they had a permanent seat in your life. But you didn't just remove their chair, you changed the entire room. And now they stand outside a door that no longer exists, wondering how they went from center stage to absolute irrelevance. They told themselves your silence was temporary, a phase, a strategy to gain leverage. But time exposed the truth. Your silence wasn't a tactic. It was your new language. And that language said, you no longer matter here. They couldn't stand that you didn't need to prove anything after leaving. No emotional speeches, no dramatic exits, no clearing your name. You simply lived well, and that alone dismantled every narrative they tried to build about you. They wanted to remain a scar in your story, Instead, they became a footnote, an early chapter you learned from, a mistake that made you wiser, colder, and far more selective. They thought starving your emotions would make you beg. Instead, withdrawing their access taught you how to feed yourself peace. And the moment you learned that, their relevance expired. They still feel the hunger they created not for you as a person, but for the control they once thought they had. But control doesn't grow back once it's been stripped away by self-respect. They didn't just lose your presence. They lost the version of themselves that felt powerful around you. And that loss follows them quietly, relentlessly, everywhere they go. They spent so long believing you were a puppet, reacting to every tug of their manipulation, every emotional thread they pulled in your direction. They thought your feelings were switches they could flip whenever it benefited them. What they never saw coming was the quiet weight in your hand, the scissors you had been holding the entire time. They mistook your patience for obedience. Every delay in your reaction made them bolder, more careless, more convinced they owned your responses. They kept pulling tighter, thinking control grows with pressure. They didn't realize pressure only sharpens the blade that cuts free. You watched them test their power again and again, testing how far they could bend you without breaking you. They forgot one small detail: bent. Things don't always snap outward. Sometimes they snap inward, becoming unrecognizable, unreachable, done. They whispered narratives about you, shaped your image to suit their needs, tried to choreograph your emotions like a performance. But off stage, in the silence they never paid attention to, you were learning where every string came from and where to sever it. They thought your hesitation was confusion. It was calculation. They thought your softness was weakness. It was choice. They thought your silence was fear. It was restraint. And restraint is the cousin of control. They kept pulling because pulling once worked. They used guilt, memory, obligation, history, everything they believed still had a grip on you. They didn't realize those things only had power because you once allowed them to. The scissors weren't rage. They weren't hate. They weren't revenge. They were clarity. And clarity doesn't announce itself. It acts. They expected you to resist. They expected screaming, arguing, breakdowns, emotional chaos. What they didn't expect was the stillness that came right before complete disappearance. The quiet before the strings fell limp. When you cut them off, there was no warning shot, no dramatic exit, no explanation, just absence. And absence is unbearable to people who survive on control. They ran their hands over the places where they once felt dominant, trying to feel the tension again. But there was nothing to grip anymore. Their power reflected back at them as empty space. They told themselves you'd be back. Everyone comes back after a cut that drastic, right? But time kept moving, and you didn't return. And with each passing day, the truth grew heavier. You didn't escape emotionally, you escaped completely. They tried to provoke you to feel relevant again. Subtle jabs, loud accusations, fake apologies, public performance, private guilt. But nothing worked, because you weren't on the stage anymore. What hurt the most was realizing you didn't cut them in anger. You cut them in acceptance. You accepted that nothing they offered was healthy, real, or safe for your future. They kept waiting for the moment you'd weaken, the moment the scissors would slip from your hand, but your grip only tightened with time, and the longer you stayed gone, the more final it became. They wanted reactions. You gave them erasure. They wanted a fight. You gave them history. They wanted leverage. You gave them silence, and silence doesn't negotiate. They couldn't understand how someone they thought they controlled could simply vanish from their reach. It didn't fit their version of reality, and so their reality began to collapse. What terrified them most wasn't your absence, it was how peaceful you looked inside it. Peace was the one outcome they never planned for. They thought cutting off contact would make you lonely. Instead, it made you precise. Your energy stopped leaking into places that never valued it. Your focus returned to yourself like a long-lost possession finally reclaimed. They still tried to speak your name like a spell, hoping it would summon you back. But names don't work on people who have already closed the circle. You didn't block them out of spite. You blocked them out of strategy, because access is currency, and they ran out of credit a long time ago. They tried to convince others that you were cruel, heartless, selfish for leaving that way, but deep down, they knew the truth: you didn't destroy anything. You escaped it. Every string they once pulled now hangs useless in their hands. Every trick they once relied on now exposes their desperation. They can't reach you, reshape you, confuse you, or control you. They wanted to run you like a script. You rewrote the genre and walked out of the story entirely. They used to believe you were predictable. But unpredictability is what happens when someone finally chooses themselves over manipulation. They thought they were the puppeteer. What they never realized was that the puppet was the only one who had the power to end the show. After you vanished, they started questioning every moment they thought they had power over you. Every conversation replayed differently now. Every memory felt altered. What once felt like dominance now felt like illusion. And illusions shatter the loudest when reality finally steps in. They searched for signs of weakness in you, something they could still latch onto. A rumor, a hesitation, a backward glance. But all they found was consistency in your absence. You didn't flicker. You didn't waver. You didn't hover near the edge of return. You were simply gone. They underestimated how final silence can be. They thought silence was a pause. You showed them it was a period. You didn't ghost, you erased the option of being reached. And that kind of erasure changes how people breathe. Their pride couldn't digest the idea that someone they once controlled now lived in a world where they no longer existed. It bruised them in places no apology could ever heal, because apologies only work when access still exists. They told themselves stories to survive the shame. They said you were cold. They said you were heartless. They said you ran away. But deep down, behind all the lies, they knew the truth: you ran from nothing. You moved toward yourself. They tried to reclaim relevance by rewriting the narrative. But you never came back to defend your name. And that silence forced the truth to stand alone without interference. People noticed. Truth always gets louder when lies lose their audience. Your absence became a constant reminder that control is an illusion you allow someone to have. And once it's revoked, nothing restores it. No guilt, no regret, no nostalgia. They realized too late that the real power was never in pulling strings, it was in choosing whether those strings existed at all. And you deleted the entire structure, not just the attachments. They once believed you needed conflict to feel alive. You showed them peace could be far more ruthless. Peace doesn't argue. Peace doesn't explain. Peace just disappears and never looks back. Every attempt they made to provoke you only confirmed their own desperation. You never responded because you didn't need to prove you were free. Free people don't announce escape. They simply don't come back. They felt irrelevant in their own story for the first time. The roles reversed. They waited. You lived. They obsessed. You evolved. They looked backward. You didn't look at all. What haunted them most wasn't losing you, it was knowing they created the version of you that would never tolerate them again. Their behavior didn't just end the relationship, it destroyed the door permanently. They thought time would soften you. Time did something far worse, it sharpened you. Memory stopped hurting. Patterns became clear. The scissors only got steadier in your hand. They expected distance to weaken your resolve. Instead, distance fortified it. You built a life that didn't include them, and somehow that cut deeper than any dramatic confrontation ever could. They learned the hardest truth: too late control only exists where access remains. And you didn't just revoke access, you redesigned your entire world so they no longer fit inside it. The moment you said, "I can do better," something shifted in the air between you and them. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't anger, it was certainty. And certainty terrifies people who built their control on your self-doubt. In that moment, they didn't just hear confidence, they heard the end of their influence. They had grown comfortable thinking you would tolerate anything as long as it came with familiarity. They assumed your patience meant limitation. But when you said you could do better, you shattered the illusion that they were your ceiling. Suddenly they realized they weren't the prize anymore, they were the checkpoint you passed. Your words didn't insult them, they exposed them. They revealed that what once felt irreplaceable was actually just ordinary to someone who finally knew their worth. And nothing shakes a person more than realizing they were never as special as they believed. For the first time, they saw you not as someone grateful for scraps, but as someone comparing options. And comparison is lethal to ego. Because the moment you compare, you imply alternatives, better ones, stronger ones, healthier ones. They respected you more because you didn't beg to be chosen, you declared that you had choices. You didn't threaten, you didn't compete, you simply acknowledged your own value out loud. And that honesty carried more dominance than any argument ever could. They replayed that sentence in their mind more than any insult you could have thrown. I can do better, not I deserve better, not you hurt me, but I can do better. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic, and that terrified them. In that moment, they realized you were no longer negotiating your worth. You were defining it. And once someone defines their worth, the bargaining phase is over forever. They had always believed you needed them to feel validated, but your words proved something colder. You were choosing them before, not clinging to them. And choice can always be revoked. They watched your posture change after that. Your energy became quieter, calmer, heavier. You didn't need to prove anything anymore. The sentence did all the work. You had already placed yourself above the dynamic without raising your voice. They respected you more, not because they liked what you said, but because they felt the power behind it. Power that doesn't need permission, power that doesn't ask, power that walks. You didn't declare war, you declared standards. And standards separate the weak from the worthy without a single fight. They had grown used to thinking you'd always settle for what was in front of you. But that one sentence told them your future didn't revolve around their approval anymore. It revolved around your potential. The respect came from fear, not admiration. Fear that you had finally outgrown the version of them that once felt untouchable. Fear that you would no longer tolerate what you once survived. They started seeing you differently after that, not as someone to manage, but as someone to measure themselves against. And suddenly, the balance of power tilted without any visible struggle. They realized how dangerous someone becomes when they stop hoping and start expecting better. Hope can be manipulated. Expectation cannot. Your calm after that sentence was louder than any confrontation could have been. You didn't argue to stay. You didn't beg to be understood. You simply made it clear that your future didn't require their participation. They respected you more because you showed them the one thing they never expected: you were willing to walk away from what once defined you. They had always assumed you'd fight to be chosen. Instead, you chose yourself. And self-selection is the highest form of dominance. It forced them to question their place in your life, not emotionally but strategically. Were they an asset or just familiar noise? They realized your loyalty was never weakness, it was generosity. And generosity, once withdrawn, feels like punishment even when no revenge is planned. The respect doubled because they saw discipline where they expected desperation, control where they expected chaos, confidence where they expected collapse. They kept waiting for you to retract that sentence, to soften it, to explain it, but you never did. You let it stand exactly where it landed, and that silence made it permanent. They understood then that your patience had ended, not in anger, but in clarity, and clarity is far more terrifying than rage. They respected you because they finally saw the line you would not cross again, and people respect boundaries they know they can't bend. Your value increased in their eyes because you stopped giving discounts to those who never paid in full. They realized your presence was never guaranteed, it was earned, and once they lost access, they understood the cost of underestimating you. They didn't respect you because you were louder. They respected you because you were done explaining. They stopped trying to manipulate you because manipulation only works on people still unsure of their worth, and you were not that person anymore. They looked at you differently because you had quietly elevated yourself above the emotional marketplace they lived in. Your words didn't start a fight. They ended an era. They respected you because you didn't need their respect to leave. They respected you because you didn't need their fear to stand tall. They respected you because you didn't need their approval to choose peace. They respected you because you proved to them and to yourself that your future was bigger than their role in it. They never expected that sentence to age like a curse in their mind. At first it sounded simple. Later it became unbearable. It echoed every time they noticed your absence didn't weaken you. Every rise you made without them sharpened the truth they tried to ignore. You really could do better, and you did. What destroyed them wasn't the sentence itself, but how quickly your life began to validate it. You didn't collapse. You didn't chase. You didn't spiral. You upgraded in silence, and silence makes failure louder than any insult ever could. They started replaying every moment they once felt superior to you, every time they dismissed you, every time they thought you'd never leave. The sentence turned all of that into humiliation, because now they weren't the ones who walked away, you were. They realized too late that you weren't speaking from ego, you were speaking from options, from self-respect, from a future that no longer had their fingerprints on it. And nothing wounds control like irrelevance. Your calm evolution offended them more than revenge ever could have. You didn't try to destroy them. You simply rebuilt yourself without their permission, and that exposed how small their role in your story truly was. They respected you because you didn't rewrite the past. You outgrew it. You didn't need closure. You became the closure. They began to understand that they were never your peak, just a lesson you graduated from. And people hate realizing they were a chapter, not the destination. The respect grew darker with regret, not the kind that seeks forgiveness, but the kind that sits heavy at night, replaying moments they wish they handled differently. Because now there was no way back into the version of you that tolerated them. They noticed your standards rise quietly, your energy shift sharply, your boundaries close like vault doors. You stopped explaining yourself because your life became the explanation. They saw you detaching without bitterness, and that scared them more than rage ever could. Because anger still means emotional access. Detachment means the door is welded shut. They respected you because your growth made them confront their own stagnation. You moved forward while they stayed trapped in the same mindset that once made them think they were above you. They realized they lost more than you ever did. You lost a person. They lost their place, their influence, their illusion of importance in your life. Your sentence became prophecy. Every step you took ahead without looking back made it truer. And truth that proves itself is the deadliest kind. They respected you because you didn't seek validation. You became the standard by walking away. Your life stopped orbiting around what they thought of you. Their life, however, started orbiting around what you might become without them. They watched from a distance as your absence became permanent. And permanence is what finally taught them how replaceable they always were to someone who never settled, only paused. They came to understand that losing access to you was the real consequence, not losing your affection. The moment you said, "I can do better," you didn't just hurt their ego, you rewrote your position in their mind forever. You went from someone they thought they had figured out to someone they deeply miscalculated. Your respect in their eyes doubled, not because you begged for it, but because you became the proof. You didn't argue, you didn't perform, you didn't seek revenge. You simply evolved beyond the version of you they had power over. And that shift is permanent. They didn't lose you, they lost the version of you they could control. They really thought they could outsmart you. That was their first mistake. They approached you with strategy, manipulation, little games designed to confuse and control, never realizing you were already 10 moves ahead, watching their every pattern repeat like a broken record. They confused your patience with ignorance and your silence with blindness. They didn't know they were challenging the creator of the game itself. They came to the board with excitement, believing they were finally about to win. But you had already studied them long before they made their first move. Their habits, their impulses, their ego-driven mistakes, all predictable, all transparent. They thought they were stepping into a battle of equals. You knew from the beginning it was a massacre waiting to happen. They assumed you were naive, someone who played emotionally. They didn't see the architect behind your eyes, the one who designs outcomes, not reacts to them. So while they celebrated every small advantage they thought they gained, you were quietly rearranging the entire board beneath their feet. They brought chaos, thinking chaos could shake you. But you've lived through storms they couldn't survive. You've danced with darker minds, learned from sharper knives. Their attempts at confusion only amused you. They didn't understand that what scares them has always empowered you. They played dirty using lies, rumors, manipulation. They smiled while stabbing, believing you'd crumble. Instead, you watched, studying how low they could go. It wasn't a shock. It was confirmation. They were amateurs pretending to be tacticians. They thought you were reacting emotionally. You weren't. You were calculating. Every silence was a strategy. Every distance was a counterattack. Every time you didn't respond, you were letting them dig their own grave, brick by manipulative brick. They believed they were teaching you a lesson. But in reality, all they did was expose their weaknesses: arrogance, insecurity, desperation for control. And once you identify someone's weaknesses, they stop being a threat. They assumed you would lose yourself in the chaos they created. Instead, you found clarity. Their games sharpened you. Their lies strengthened you. Their betrayal revealed how small they were standing next to the mind they underestimated. They thought you would eventually break and attempt to prove your worth to them, but you never played to impress them. You played to understand them. And once you understood them completely, the game became boring. They kept making moves with confidence, unaware they were walking straight into the trap you set with complete calmness. While they were celebrating one pawn, you were positioning your checkmate. They tried to outsmart you by switching strategies: love bombing, then hostility, then victimhood. Ironically, every version of them was equally predictable. They were just actors cycling through roles with the same weak script. They interpreted your silence as defeat, but you were merely observing. Silence is golden to fools because they mistake it for weakness. But to a strategist, silence is where the winning moves are crafted. The moment they thought they had you figured out was the moment you stopped playing. And that's when panic began, because the game wasn't fun anymore when you stopped participating. They needed your reactions like oxygen. Without them, they suffocated in irrelevance. They thought removing themselves from your life would hurt you. They didn't realize you had already mentally walked away long before the physical distance happened. They exited a game that you had finished months ago. Every attempt they made to one-up you only revealed how deeply they cared about the outcome. You didn't. That alone put you miles ahead. A player obsessed with winning always loses to someone who has nothing left to lose. They tried to provoke you into moves they could predict, but you remained unreadable, calm, ice-cold, unreadable. That's what terrified them. They were used to your warmth, not this quiet brilliance that burned without flame. They thought they could trick you into making emotional decisions, but you learned long ago that emotions are the enemy of strategy. You stopped loving them the moment they became a liability to your peace. Every lie they whispered was a move on the board, and every truth you already knew was another piece you silently positioned. While they were speaking loudly, you were thinking louder. They came into your life believing they were the hunter, but they didn't know they were stepping into the lion's den disguised as a chess match. And lions don't play, they end. The more they tried to control the narrative, the more control they lost. You didn't fight them, you let them expose themselves, and a self-sabotaging opponent is the easiest kind to defeat. They thought betrayal would be your breaking point. Instead, it was your confirmation. Their disloyalty was the last piece you needed to finalize your checkmate, clean, calculated, inevitable. They expected tears, confrontation, drama, but your silence, your smirk, your calm departure, that was the real punishment. They didn't expect a villain to walk away without a monologue. They never realized they were just pawns in a game you mastered long before they entered your life. Pawns pretending to be kings. How tragic, how predictable, how beautifully pathetic. And when you finally delivered the checkmate, not with noise but with absence, it hit them harder than any revenge ever could. They didn't lose the game. They lost access to the mind that could have elevated them. In the end, the truth burns. They tried to play chess with someone who invented the board, and now they're stuck replaying every wrong move in their head, while you've already started a new game they'll never be invited to. They thought they had every version of you figured out, as if you were some simple pattern they could decode in a few reckless moves. But the truth was always colder, always deeper. You weren't just playing the game, you were the one who crafted its foundation. They were so busy studying your footsteps that they never realized you built the ground they were standing on. Their arrogance made them blind, and your silence made you untouchable. Every time they believed they were ahead, you were already miles beyond them. They mistook your calm for ignorance, your patience for weakness. They thought they were orchestrating chaos, while you quietly shaped entire outcomes from the shadows. They didn't realize you moved like inevitability, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. By the time they caught up, the game was already over. You watched them celebrate their little victories, the ones you handed them so they'd wander deeper into the maze you designed. Their confidence inflated, their guard lowered, and they walked willingly into traps you didn't even need to set anymore. It wasn't manipulation, it was architecture. They lived inside a world you engineered without them ever noticing the walls closing in. Their strategies were loud, frantic, desperate. Yours existed in silence, carved from long nights of rebuilding yourself from ashes they never saw. They tried to challenge someone who understands not just the game but the psychology behind every piece on the board. They moved impulsively. You moved with purpose, and purpose always triumphs over ego. What made it worse for them was how effortlessly you dismantled their plans. Not with rage, not with theatrics, just precision. They swung wildly, trying to dominate a battlefield that didn't belong to them. You didn't even push back. You simply removed your presence, and they began to collapse under the weight of their own miscalculations. Nothing is more devastating than realizing you were never a threat to the one you tried to betray. They kept trying to define you, label you, explain you as if they had the vocabulary to understand someone who doesn't play by human limits. You weren't reacting, you were designing. You weren't scheming, you were shaping. They looked at you like an opponent. You looked at them like variables in an equation you solved before the first move was made. And when they attempted to corner you, you let them. You watched them tighten their own noose, thinking they were tightening yours. Letting them believe they had the advantage was part of the lesson, because nothing humbles a pretender faster than falling into a victory they never truly won. They never realized that every win they celebrated was a door leading them exactly where you wanted them. One by one, their assumptions collapsed. They realized too late that you weren't reacting to their moves, you were predicting them. Their choices were predictable, repetitive, rehearsed. You, on the other hand, moved like a force of nature, calculated and cold. You didn't just stay 10 steps ahead. You built the steps. Their downfall began the moment they believed you were manageable. That belief cracked the moment they watched their plans crumble from the inside. They learned the hard way that you cannot outsmart the architect. You can only expose your own weaknesses in the attempt, and every weakness they tried to hide became a weapon in your hands. Your silence became the tension they couldn't handle. Your distance became the mirror they couldn't look into. You didn't strike back, you didn't need to. You simply stopped participating in the game, and without you, their entire sense of power evaporated. They needed your presence to feel strong. You needed nothing from them.